Well, this branch of the MCU has certainly come a long way. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. Today I'm going to be ranking the 4 Thor films of the MCU as part of my franchise Rankography series. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, ranked lists, and trailer reactions. So what is a Rankography exactly? Well, it's my ranking of a filmography, whether that be a director's output, an actor's appearances, or even an entire franchise. My rankographies are based on personal preference, and I rank movies according to how much I enjoyed them, rather than any specific technical merit or attribute. Remember, this is just my ranking, not the ranking, so be sure to post your own personal ranking of the Thor franchise in the comments below. As one of the core Avengers, and only the 3rd character to get his own standalone film within the MCU, Thor has been on his franchise journey for quite some time now. Admittedly, he's not my favorite Avenger, but over the years, he and his franchise have undergone quite the transition, probably the most significant and diverse within the MCU, ranging from Shakespearean melodrama to campy sci-fi adventure comedy. When I finally get around to reviewing all of the films within the MCU, I'll eventually do a full MCU rankography, but for now, let's just take a look at these 4 Thors. I've already reviewed all 4 of these movies on this channel, so if you want to check those out for some more in-depth thoughts on each of them, I'll put links in the description below and also link them up in the cards as we go along. Alright, let's get this rankography started. Coming in at number 4, Thor: The Dark World. Okay, so really no surprise on this one, considering that, as of right now, it sits at the very bottom of my entire MCU ranking. That said, I do want to say that I don't hate this movie. It's just not one that I ever had the desire to pull off the shelf and rewatch. It's a competently made film from a technical standpoint. It looks and sounds fine, the acting's fine for the most part, it's got some decent action and visual effects that are both a step up from its predecessor. It's just unbelievably dull. The frustrating thing is that it really shouldn't be. It had a lot of potential with the played-up sci-fi elements and interrealm portals. The reunion between Thor and Jane had some character potential. This film further builds upon Thor's character arc. Loki and the unique partnership between he and Thor provides a bit of humor and playfulness, but unfortunately, it's just not enough. Much like its predecessor, there's quite a bit of disconnect between the different portions of the story, this time further split between not only Earth and Asgard, but also the interrealm portals and Dark Realm. It's got an exceedingly underwhelming villain, which further decreases the story's ability to engage, and it's just an aggressively dull and extraordinarily lifeless slog. Coming in at number 3, Thor. This film functions as Thor's introduction to the MCU, and is also one of the early standalone films of Phase 1. I'm a big origin story fan in general, so usually that sees them at or close to the top of any rankings for me. But Thor is actually one of my lowest rated origins within the MCU. It's certainly a big improvement over my number 4 Thor pick for sure, but it's still one of the weaker films in the MCU for me. It's a very plot-heavy movie, with a lot of background and story to cover. In fact, there's so much setup here that a full 30 minutes are devoted to it at the very beginning of the film. For whatever reason, this film's approach to telling its story has just never been able to connect with me. It heavily leans into the mythology side of things, which is understandable, considering that's where Marvel's version of the character is directly derived from. But it's just not engaging for me. The Asgard portion of the story and the Shakespearean melodrama brought about by Brana's direction, not to mention the excessive number of Dutch angles, makes it a little tough to watch. There's some fun to be had with the earthbound fish out of water storyline, and there are some decent character arcs, but the pacing and story structure really hamper this one. Coming in at number 2, Thor: Love and Thunder. Even though this movie's in the number 2 spot, this was actually quite close to being my number 1, and may very well move up into that position after another rewatch or two. As with its predecessor, Taika Waititi was in the director's chair again. So, after the surprising tonal shift that was Ragnarok, I had a pretty good idea of what to expect here, and wasn't blindsided by my first watch like I was with Ragnarok. It's definitely a similarly goofy film. Not all of the humor works, though my theater absolutely loved the goats. The opening scenes of the first act are a bit over the top with the campiness, but things settle in for a fun but well-balanced tone and story once the plot really gets going. The story is more classic MCU than its predecessor, but it definitely feels more coherent than any of the previous Thors were. It's still a story that's told across the cosmos, bits in New Asgard and Earth, and bits on a space adventure, but they all work together to contribute to the same overarching story. For once, it feels like one single movie rather than 2 or 3 films that are kind of just thrown together. Gorr is a decent villain, creepy, formidable, and with an understandable backstory and motivation, but the big character reintroduction here was Jane. It's nice to see her back, and see her with a much bigger role in the story this time around. The Mighty Thor story arc was surprisingly good, and the chemistry between her and Thor was great. I guess all it was missing before was just a little bit of humor. So that means my number 1 Thor film is Thor Ragnarok. When this movie first came out, my expectations were as low as you could get. The first Thor was okay, but nothing special, and the Dark World was brutally dull. Even in his non-standalone film appearances, Thor was never a particularly interesting or engaging character for me. But this film saw a complete 180, not just for Thor as a character, but also for the Thor franchise. Taika Waititi injected life and energy back into Thor, creating one of the most fun, colorful, and ridiculous films in the MCU. This film saw a huge tonal shift for the franchise, but it was just what it needed. Admittedly, there's not much of a story here, and it still suffers from the split focus between stuff on Asgard and stuff away from Asgard, like its 2 predecessors, but it's extremely fun and quirky and self-aware. In addition to Thor, this film boasts a set of very memorable characters, including a great villain in Hela, as well as the introduction of Valkyrie. Thor Ragnarok revived both the character and the franchise, and turned something that had become unbelievably bland and flavorless into something unexpectedly energetic and entertaining. Alright, so that's my rankography of the Thor franchise. 4 movies, 2 distinct tones, and 1 very iconic hammer. What does your ranking look like? I'd love to see some reasoning for your order, so be sure to post it in the comments below. Remember, I've already reviewed all 4 of these movies, so you can check those videos out if you want some more in-depth discussion of each, as well as my ratings, pros and cons, and even tailored film recommendations. And if you're interested in buying any of these movies, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insider information out of this rankography, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this, as well as movie reviews. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies. The way life should be.